Alright, so I am currently getting ready to go to the theater to watch Eddington. That will be our episode for today. Expectations going in, not really sure what to expect. I've never watched an Ari Aster film before, so this is going to be a new one for me. So, in the spirit of Pedro, going alone. Don't really like to go to the movies alone, but I will if I have to, or if I'm really pumped to see a movie that I'm super excited about. And I am excited about this one because this is something. This movie is gonna pack a punch, to say the least. Especially with all of the political things that are happening in this movie, and I also think it's gonna hit home for me because it's also a western. I grew up on westerns, so I'm excited to see a modern day western and see what it's like going through the pandemic for these characters, and see what happens. So I will get back with you guys after the movie.
You're listening to Popcorn Unscripted,
the podcast where we dive into movies and TV shows with no scripts, no filters, just real talk and plenty of popcorn.
I'm Bailey.
And I'm Dylan.
We're here to talk about everything we love
And love to hate
in pop culture. So grab your popcorn,
sit back,
and let's get this show started. Alright, so I am back at the studio after done watched Eddington in the theater. So welcome to episode 25. This is a very monumental episode, as well as this is a very monumental movie and a very big movie, in all honesty. A very big movie of 2025. Even though I know the Rotten Tomatoes score, the Rotten Tomatoes score is probably sitting at like 68% at about right now, so it has mixed reviews, and rightfully so, because when I walked out of that theater, I did not feel good. I definitely did not feel good. This movie really portrayed what it was like living through the pandemic and the Black Lives Matter movement and all of that was happening during that time, and how crazy it was to live during that time too. And I left out of there completely speechless. I think I walked out of there like depressed almost. I think that's really what happened, is I just walked out of there depressed. I was like, what did I just witness? What was this? So here is your warning for if you have not seen this movie yet. I highly recommend you do. I'd say it's a good movie to at least watch once, but if you have not seen the movie, I highly recommend you go watch this before continuing any further. But getting into the questions, so first things first, we're going to talk about the theme, the thematic depth, and the message of the movie. So what do you think Eddington is trying to say about America during the early COVID-19 era? So COVID, if I remember correctly, COVID started around the end of 2019 and then all throughout 2020 and then into 2021. Really, 2020 was the year of COVID, from what I remember, and my gosh, was it one of the most craziest times I have ever lived in my life. And I feel like it's only going to get I honestly feel like it'll probably get worse. There'll probably be worse things than this that we will experience in this lifetime. And keep in mind that I am 25 years old. I am a quarter of a century old. And so watching this movie and reliving that, I was just like, yeah, that was not a very good place for America at all. All of us were going crazy because they had us locked down. They had us wearing masks. They had us trying to do all of these things so we don't spread the virus or catch the virus. But ultimately, if you were meant to catch the virus, you were going to catch it regardless. And I took so much precaution in trying to get it after learning what COVID could do to me specifically. I did my best to follow the mandates. I followed the rules. I did what I could. But ultimately, I fell victim to COVID. Like a lot of people, I ended up getting COVID in 21, I think. It was either late, it might have been 2020 when I ended up getting COVID, but when I had COVID, I felt like I was on the brink of death. I felt like it was killing me. I was literally in my bed for 2 days straight. Didn't even move, didn't get up, nothing. I didn't do anything. I just stayed in my bed for the most part. Like, my dad had to come in there and pull me off, like, tell me to get up and move around, or else you're just gonna be stiff. And yeah, it was, and told me to go outside. And I was like, I just felt that bad. I felt that bad. And it was a terrible, terrible time. And Eddington really brought that out of me, really brought back those memories in it, and it was really good for that aspect, in my opinion. So, did the film feel like it was taking a side politically, or was it skewering everyone? This movie definitely didn't go with one side or the other. There was a lot of messages in this movie. There was a lot of perspectives in this movie. There is a lot to unpack here, because this movie, I feel like, has so many messages wrapped up into one, which is why I think it's so, I don't know if convoluted is the right word, but that's the word I'm going to use. It just felt like there was so much happening that I felt like it wasn't necessarily all in the same, like, you know. But it definitely didn't take a single side politically. It showed all sides of everything, which was incredible. And I was like, yeah, I agree with some things that the mayor wanted to do, and I agreed with some things about the sheriff that he wanted to do. I agreed to both sides for the most part. There were some things that I did not agree with, especially at the beginning where the sheriff comes down to Mayor Ted Garcia's bar, and the homeless man was banging outside the door, and the mayor was like, I had to lock the door to keep him out, and the sheriff was just like, well, your business is open, is it not? And I'm just like, in my head, I was like, well, yeah, but at the same time, this is his business, and he can choose who to let in and who not to let in, right? Like, he has that choice. Like, you're making him out to be the bad guy when he had every right to keep the man out if he was acting hysterical and acting like he was gonna hurt somebody. Like, Ted had that right. And the sheriff was just going at him, and I'm just like, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm just like, it was his right to keep him out, especially with the way the guy was acting. Which, he clearly was not a paying customer. We clearly knew that this man did not have any money, from what we know, because later on in the movie you see that he's a homeless guy. Unless somebody were to have given him money and he came to the bar, which I highly doubt, but at the same time, Ted had that right to not let him into his establishment. Just like everybody else. He had that right to keep him out. And the sheriff was just like, whatever. And then the guy ultimately ended up breaking in, and yeah. Anyway. So, was the satire effective, or did it feel ambiguous or scattered? So, I'm just going to take a moment to kind of define what a satire is, because I always forget what a satire is, because I'm not very familiar with a lot of film lingo. I'm just now getting into film and things of that nature, so there's a lot of things that I do not know and that I want to inform others on that don't know any of this kind of stuff as well. So, in the context of film, satire refers to a genre or literary technique that uses humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize human folly, societal flaws, and institutions. So the aim of satire is often to provoke thought, inspire change, or entertain audiences while offering commentary on social norms, political issues, and cultural practices. So, did I feel like it was effective? Not so much on the humor side, but I would say it was effective in all other parts of it. I didn't think it was I didn't think it was ambiguous. I do think it was definitely scattered. It definitely felt like it was jumping from things to thing, because it didn't feel like it was all one story. It didn't feel like it wasn't like a flow. There wasn't like a flow. It was so scattered. I didn't really know sometimes what was going on in some parts of the film. But yeah, there was a lot of things that I didn't really understand because it was so scattered, and you didn't really understand what was going on. And the one character I didn't really understand was, what's his name? Austin Butler. I didn't really understand what his character's involvement was, other than to take Joe Cross's wife away from him. And honestly, I think the only reason that she went with him is because, for one, he's younger, and two, he doesn't think she's crazy. And he actually admires what she does, which I think Joe was just kind of like supporting her in a way, but not really supporting her. Like, in the back of his mind, I think he thought she was crazy. When you really think about it, but I would say the film's pretty scattered. I wouldn't say this was a good film, and I wouldn't say it's a bad film. It's just kind of mid, in my own opinion. But how do you interpret the symbolism behind the town and its isolation? So, the town of Eddington is set in New Mexico. So, most of New Mexico is desolate. It literally, the town is in the middle of nowhere. So you wouldn't think that all of the stuff that's happening in the world during COVID would happen there. And that's what the whole point of what the sheriff was trying to get across. It's not coming here. It's not going to happen here. It's like he thought the town was so isolated that the town wouldn't ever have problems. But that was certainly not the case as the movie goes on, which of course him and the mayor end up going at it, because his Joaquin Phoenix's character ends up going for mayor and going against the mayor, because of course his belief in masks is what kind of drives him to do so. And really, I think he just wanted to get back at the mayor, because for some reason he didn't like the mayor. And it's mainly because he thought that the mayor had, I'll say, taken advantage of his wife. I'll say it that way. It's not to trigger anybody. But he thought that the mayor had taken advantage of his wife when she was just a young girl, which of course was obviously not the case, as you see later on in another conversation with Ted Garcia, as he's having with one of his cabinet members. He has a conversation with this guy, and he's like, I did not touch her. I didn't do anything with her. She wouldn't allow me to touch her. And you could see, which of course it's all from Pedro's performance as well, but you could tell, like, in the mayor's body language and in the mayor's eyes, that he was definitely telling the truth and he was not lying whatsoever, which of course we as an audience know that, but the characters do not, and the characters don't necessarily find out about that until the sheriff's wife ends up posting a video on her socials denying what her husband ended up saying was absolutely false. That Ted didn't touch her, didn't do anything to her. It was not he was not her abuser. And then of course that ended up making him mad, because I think he desperately wanted it to be him just so he could get revenge. And then when that came out that he wasn't his it was such a weird thing to me. But speaking of these characters, what do you think of Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal of Joe Cross? Did his skepticism feel nuanced or exaggerated? I think Joaquin did an absolutely amazing job with this character. I wouldn't say it was nuanced. I would say it was a bit exaggerated, but I think that was what was meant to happen. I think that's what he was meant to do, is kind of over-exaggerate this character a little bit. But he did an absolutely amazing job as this character, because he honestly reminded me of a lot of people here in my hometown that didn't like the masks at all and didn't really want to deal with that sort of thing. So it was certainly an interesting thing to watch and witness, and which of course I could see from the mayor's point of view and his point of view. Yes, I believe the masks helped, but I also don't think they helped as much as people thought they helped. And if that makes sense. Like, I agreed, like, masks do help, but only to a certain extent. Like, the mask isn't going to be the only thing, like, the mask is not the only thing that protects you. You have to stay clean in order for you to be more protected than just the mask. Because just wearing the mask is not going to help you. And that, I think that was one of the things that they were trying to get across to people, but other people were not thinking of it that way. They just saw the mask as like a, what would you call it? They just saw it as a nuisance, or they saw it as a inconvenience, I guess you could say. But his portrayal of Joe was absolutely spot on, and I absolutely liked the character in the beginning. I absolutely liked the character in the beginning, but as the movie went on, I was just like, okay, now you're going a bit too far. I was like, alright. Like, when he shot Ted, I was just like, okay, that's going off the deep end, man. That's just going off the deep end. You're just like, you know what? F it. I'm just gonna take matters into my own hands. But anyway. So, how did Pedro Pascal's Mayor Garcia contrast with Joe, and did either feel like a caricature? Again, Pedro did an amazing performance with this character. Pedro, you actually surprised me with this death, because I was not expecting it. I was not expecting him to die at all. So good on you for surprising me this time. I was not expecting him to die, but he ultimately dies, which I should have known better, because you play characters that die all the time. I should have known better, but I didn't, and you surprised me this time. But they were definitely, I wouldn't say two sides of the same coin, but it's kind of like that. Because it would flip back and forth. It's like you can see where Ted was coming from, and you could see where the sheriff was coming from, and you can see how their differences really, like, you could see how their differences really came out, and it was like this whole, it was just a whole thing. I wouldn't say it was like they felt like a caricature. I couldn't really compare them to anybody in real life specifically. Not anybody that I know of, but both guys did an amazing job, as usual. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. But did any characters surprise you with unexpected depth or development? Not really. Although, Joe Cross going off the deep end, that kind of surprised me a little bit, because in the beginning he was just all about getting justice and stuff, and then he ended up taking matters into his own hands and ended up killing not only the mayor but also his son, killing both of them. And I was like, he's went off the deep end, which of course he ended up getting sick at that point after he had found the homeless guy. The homeless guy had broken back into Ted's bar, and he ended up killing the guy and getting sick somehow, some way. which we don't know if it was COVID. I don't think it was confirmed that it was COVID. He did get his test results back, but I don't think it said whether or not it was in fact COVID that he got. I honestly think it was something else that made that. Honestly think it was something else, something that's definitely wasn't COVID that made his mind just go haywire, because you could see his descent mentally, and he absolutely went off, which honestly I think he went off the deep end after his wife left. After his wife left, that's when he kind of just was like, alright, I'm gonna do what I have to do, and this is how I'm gonna do it. So moving forward, how well do you think Eddington blended its genres, which is a neo-western, horror, black comedy? I honestly think it blended them really well. I wouldn't classify this as a horror, though. There was nothing there was some, I guess. I mean, you would feel horrified. You feel horrified watching it, but I wouldn't classify this as like a horror where it has like jump scares and stuff. I wouldn't classify it as that type of horror. But you do feel horrified when you watch it. And so, as a neo-western, I'm not exactly sure on the term neo-western, but it didn't really feel like a western, even though it's at some points it did feel like a western. There was this one point in the movie where he ends up showing up at Ted Garcia's house for a disturbance of the peace because of loud music. So he goes there to cut off the music. He has a confrontation with Ted, of course. He ends up slapping him twice. When he turned the music back up after that second slap and he was walking off, I was like, why didn't he just turn and just shoot the system? Because I would have loved that. I would have been like, that's what I would have done. I would have turned, I would have drew my gun and just shot the sound system and walked off. And let that be like a warning shot or something. I don't know. I think that would have been pretty funny, and not gonna lie, I think that would have been a funny moment. And then just have him smirk as he walks off, I think that would have been funny. But yeah, I think it was a good blend of genres, in my opinion, of course. So the film got a lot of buzz for being bracingly nasty. Did the tone work for you, or was it too much? I wouldn't say it was. So it's like the film was in two parts, because for half of the film it was really just two men going at it politically, and then you had, of course, all the Black Lives Matter stuff, and then you had the mask situation for like the first half of the movie, and then the next half I would say it kind of got way out of hand and really nasty and messy towards the second half of the movie, and also keep in mind, this movie was approximately 2.5 hours long. I was at the theater for like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours for this movie, and honestly I felt like it was way too long. I felt like there was some scenes that didn't need to be there. I felt like it dragged so bad, which is why I was saying earlier that it felt very, it was definitely scattered. But I just felt like there was like way too much, in my opinion. It was just way too much for me personally, because knowing me, I'm very ADHD, and I sometimes tend to not sit still for very long, so it's like, if you're not keeping my attention, it was very hard for me to try to pay attention, because I was like, I don't even know what's going on, like, I'm just so confused, I was almost confused almost the entire time, but at the same time I wasn't. It was a very weird situation. But going into the next question, which talks more about this, so was it too chaotic at times, or did that reflect the message Ari Aster was going for? I definitely think it was a bit chaotic, especially towards the end. Like, I think that chaos was very uncalled for, and I think the people that he ultimately had come in to do all of that, I think that was a bit unnecessary to have happen. I think that was a bit unnecessary to have happen, because that honestly, I don't think that would have happened in real life. Unless they were coming to that town for a specific reason, which of course, I don't think that gang or whatever they were would have targeted Eddington for any specific reason. Unless, of course, which of course, I think the sheriff was of course trying to frame the Black Lives Matter movement on his murderous charges. And I think that's maybe why they came there to do that. I don't know. Honestly, I think the movie would have been better without that. I don't know how you could have made it better without that, but I just think that was a bit uncalled for, in my opinion. But so, what stood out most to you in terms of cinematography or visual metaphors? Now, there was a lot of visuals in this movie. You really had to, like, pay attention to a lot of this, because you really had to mostly to the social media aspect of this movie. There was a lot of social media stuff, and you really had to pay attention to that. And then there was like a bunch of signage too that you had to pay attention to. There was a lot of like things in this movie that you really had to pay attention to, and yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot of things. Honestly, the cinematography, I feel like the cinematography could have been better, in my opinion. The way the shots were, there was a lot of like panning shots, and I just felt like it was all the same thing. I didn't see any really creativity with the cinematography specifically. I just felt like it was just like the same shot every time, and not the same shot, but you guys get what I mean. It's like they repeated the same thing, the same process over and over, and didn't try to do anything new. Although I thought in the end there, where he's kind of standing there trying to get his surroundings, and Joe's having this asthma attack, and the camera is like kind of circling around him so that you as the viewer can see what's around him, see what's coming. I kind of liked that. I liked that a lot. That was really the only shot I cared for specifically. Everything else was just kind of, your usual cinematography. There wasn't really anything special about it, in my opinion, anyway. So how did the use of digital media, which is news clips, text overlays, and online rants, affect the storytelling? I honestly think it enhanced the storytelling, because the use of social media, especially during the pandemic, was at an all-time high, because that was the only way people could connect to each other, because we were all in lockdown. So it was just one of those things where it's like, is like that was just the only thing that we could do, and that was the only way we could express ourselves, which is one of the reasons why we have a lot of the things we have today, is because of the things that happened in 2020. I don't think we really realize how much 2020 had an effect on not just us personally, but us as a country and us as a nation. And I have a feeling it's only going to get worse. I don't know if this country's ever going to get better or heal from the pandemic. We are trying. We are certainly trying. But there's always that thing where it's just like, I don't know if we're ever going to get past the things. So what did you think of the score by Bobby Kurlick and Daniel Pemberton? Did it elevate the mood or feel distracting? Honestly, there at the beginning, I loved that strong French horn part there at the beginning, which then again, I played French horn, so I'm kind of partial to the French horn. I'm biased, but yeah, the score seemed really good. It made you feel it definitely intensified in certain places. The score was certainly not bad. I feel like there could have been more. I feel like it could have been better, but usually when you're watching a movie, usually score music is kind of subtle when it's in the movie. But I felt like it was definitely elevating, especially in some areas of the movie. I honestly couldn't tell you specifics, but it was certainly elevated the movie and elevated the mood of the movie, and yeah, it was, yeah. So, did Eddington leave you thinking or just confused? To answer that question, I think it's both. It definitely, after I left the theater, I was more confused than anything. I was very, very confused. But after I had gotten in the car and I kind of started thinking, I was like, okay. But so yeah, it did leave me confused as I was leaving the theater, but as I got to my car and I was driving home and I got to sit and think on it, I was like, okay, this is, yeah. So I would say both. It left me confused at first, but then as the more I thought about it, the more I understood, and the reasoning why all of this had happened. So, is this a movie you'd recommend? And if so, who is the ideal audience? I would recommend you watch it at least once. Would I watch it again? Probably not. And if I do, it would be because I want to watch Pedro Pascal in it. But yeah, I would say it's a good watch to at least watch once. Because it is definitely a good story that elaborates on the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. It leaves you feeling very, like I had said earlier, it left me feeling very depressed and sad and upset. It made me feel all kinds of emotions, but mostly I was depressed. When I had went to Walmart after I went to the movies, and I felt so low. I felt so depressed. I didn't know how to really, I'm just like, right now I'm just struggling trying to figure out the right words how to convey that, but I was very low and depressed. After I had come out of the theater, I was very out of it. My brain was just empty. Like, I didn't know what to think, in all honesty. I just didn't know what to think. But, as for ideal audience, if you like satire, this would be a movie for you, maybe. If you enjoy those types of movies. Honestly, this isn't my first time watching a satire, actually, because I'm sure there was one other movie we reviewed that was a satire as well, I think. And, so this isn't my first time watching a satire, but I wouldn't have classified this as a satire anyway, but because there was only, maybe, a handful of times where it was funny, but it's more of a very serious movie than anything, and it does hit a lot of the major points of what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic. So do I feel like it will age well, or is it too rooted in a specific cultural moment? I will say it's very rooted into the early COVID-19 pandemic. Whether or not it will age well, that is, something I'm very uncertain about. That really depends on you guys. That really depends on us, whether or not it ages well. As of right now, as I'm thinking about it, I don't think it will age well, honestly. I think it will be kind of like maybe one of those hidden gems or something. But I don't think it will age well due to it being in such a crucial time for us as well as us as a whole in America. I think this movie is definitely a standout moment for that kind of thing. But yeah, so I would actually agree. Like I said, I would say at least give it a watch at least once. Again, I wouldn't watch it unless I watch it again for Pedro specifically. But honestly, for me personally, I can't really sit and watch a movie for 2.5 hours. I think that's why I never got into the Lord of the Rings movies, nor have I gotten into the Avatar movies. Although my mom loves the Avatar movies. But I can't do over 2 hour long movies. That's just a no-go for me, in my opinion. That's all for today's episode of Popcorn Unscripted.
Thanks so much for tuning in.
If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at PopUnscripted, then Popcorn Cinema on Facebook.
And let us know your thoughts or any suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out any future episodes. We upload every Wednesday and Saturday.
If you'd like to send us a message or subscribe for bonus content, check out the links in the description.
Your support means a lot and helps keep the conversation going.
If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us out a ton, and we love hearing your thoughts.
Until next time, keep your popcorn close
and your movie critiques closer.
Thanks for listening to Popcorn Unscripted.